I've known Leo for many, many years, and Leo is always out there in the trenches alongside all marginalized and oppressed communities, fighting the good fight. Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend, Leo Colas.
Woo!
Good job.
Thank you. Okay. Can you hear me? Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm Leo Collis. I'm a cis white gay man. Just so I facilitate Austin's LGBTQ and Allies Community Heart Circle at 2 o'clock on the third Sunday of every month at First UU Austin on Grover Avenue. It's free, and you are all invited. I'm also on the board of the trustees of the Texas Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry, and I'm vice president of AFSCME, which is an AFL-CIO chapter that represents 10,000 retired government employees. So that's who I am. But the question that I asked myself early on was, what if Christianity is not the key to a comfortable afterlife? What if all their cheat codes really don't work? Yeah, I said cheat codes. That's the way most fundamentalists seem to see it, and that's fundamentalism's greatest problem. No, I'm not certain of heaven, and I have no interest in spending my life playing a twisted game about who gets to go there. But I absolutely have an interest in doing the best I can to create heaven on earth right here, right now, not just for me, but for everybody. And of course, I fail at that every day. But I still try. I admire, revere, and do my best to follow the teachings of Jesus and Gandhi, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other enlightened souls, not what any church says. I'm not interested in conforming my spirituality to what any institution says is valid. The Catholic Church, Christianity, Islam, Judaism all have long and sordid histories of being abjectly wrong on the most fundamental moral issues, so why should I trust them? The only Western groups that have pretty consistently gotten the moral thing right, in my estimation, have been the Quakers and the Unitarians. Unitarians or Unitarian Universalists are more encompassing of belief and more organized about translating that faith into action, so I have aligned myself with them for the past 25 years. And you don't have to pray to Jesus or anyone at a Unitarian church, which is something I like. Many years ago, it was the Unitarians that saved me from the ravages of a mob of fundamentalist Christians, and we'll get to that. When I came out and told my parents that I was gay, it was a non-issue. They were actually pleased that I came to the conclusion myself, because they said they'd always known. Imagine. So I have no parental stress about being gay. I went to a Catholic school too, back in the age of nuns before they all went extinct. And when I was a little kid, I remember telling my mom after school one day that they made us sing a song that went, "Eat his body, drink his blood, and we'll sing a song of love." She just looked at me and a little bit shocked and said, "Just remember, you're there for the education." So I don't have religious trauma either. That gave me a great deal of emotional privilege. My parents were nice people with genuinely good hearts. They lived through and overcame a lot in their lives, and they were very justice-minded. My mother was a Rosie the Riveter during World War II, and my dad served in the Navy. Nazi Germany was an evil empire, and they did all they could to cause its downfall. As a child, I witnessed my parents verbally eviscerate the front desk staff at the Adolphus Hotel in the 1970s because the hotel refused to register a black family that was there for the same conference we were there for. I lived in Colorado during the Amendment 2 fiasco, and you may not remember that, but that was the Colorado State Constitutional Amendment in the early 90s that specifically allowed discrimination against LGBTQ folks. It was eventually struck down by the Supreme Court. That was the backdrop of my early gay years, all while the AIDS epidemic was raging. People who were sick were vilified, as were those who provided care to them. The fear was unlike anything I could describe for you. Most of my friends during that period died. Back then, before social media, we had to drag our asses out on the weekends to check in with our friends and have any kind of social interaction. One winter night, I was leaving the gay bar, and they announced over the loudspeakers that there were men outside menacing the parking lot, and we should be careful. Now, we had heard warnings like that before, but what could we do? We had no other option for community. I headed out across to my car in the dark, icy, snowy parking lot, and as I turned the corner, I saw about 6 guys come from behind a panel van shouting homophobic slurs and coming towards me. Luckily, ice and snow are problems for bigots too, and I had a clear path to my car. So I jumped in, started up, and drove right across the walkway, the sidewalk, and out into the street. Objects they threw were hitting my car as I got myself the hell out of there, but at least I was safe. I told this story to my nephew, and right away he asked me, "Why didn't you call the police?" I laughed. "Honey, a gay guy in Colorado Springs in 1990 would not invite the police into any situation that he could get himself out of with his body intact. The police could not be trusted, and they were not our friends. Lesbians, however, could be trusted to do the right thing. I wonder if the world will ever come to terms with the determination and strength of purpose of our lesbian sisters. Back in the days of AIDS, it was lesbian women who were speaking out for their gay male friends. They were taking the risk that comes with being outspoken, and in my experience, doing so with enormous hearts filled with exactly the kind of love that should have come from large mainstream organizations but did not. A lesbian friend took in a high school-aged young gay guy literally off the street who had been rejected by his family. "Where else can he go?" she said. Other women cared for gay men who were too sick with AIDS to care for themselves and whose families abandoned them. Some of these wonderful women never knew these men before they offered their assistance. As the men slowly died, these amazing women made them comfortable. And they marched for us, and they hugged us, and they held our hands. It was a cadre of 4 lesbian women who escorted me to my first gay bar, unceremoniously explaining the facts of gay life to me. They told me what to watch out for, and they very likely saved my life with that information. At the convergence of the AIDS epidemic and Colorado's hateful Amendment 2, a lovely woman, her name is Ruth Williams, she recently passed away, a psychologist, fell victim to religious terrorism for her outspoken justice work during that time. On November 2nd of 1992, she was attacked, sprayed with mace, knocked unconscious, tied to a chair, and had crosses cut into her hands and clothing. Her office was ransacked and spray painted with "Seek God and Stop Evil." That was the way Christianity rewarded compassion. I was at a political organizing meeting related to Amendment 2 at the Unitarian Church in Colorado Springs. We heard a commotion outside and came to find out what seemed like hundreds of Christians were mobbed outside the Unitarian Church holding signs and shouting vulgarities at us. The Unitarians were being victimized for helping us, but they calmed us down and made us feel safe in their building. They told us how to get out of the building without going through the crowd, and it was my first experience with a real institutional ally. A Unitarian church full of mostly straight people put themselves between us and trouble without a second thought. My first partner was Wayne, and he was the sweetest guy you'd ever want to meet. But he was born under a dark star, as they say. Well, in the Air Force, he was outed during a dalliance with his commanding officer. He was given a dishonorable discharge while the officer was simply reassigned. We met soon after that. He eventually moved in with me, and we did very normal things, including having dinner with my parents every Sunday. Then things suddenly changed, and Wayne told me he was breaking up with me and moving back to Florida. I was heartbroken. And that led to me taking a job in Texas and moving here to Austin. Soon after I got here, mutual friends contacted me and told me that they had lost touch with Wayne and were concerned about his well-being. Fearing the worst, I started calling hospitals in his hometown, and eventually I was connected to his room. He started crying as soon as he heard my voice. He had been diagnosed with AIDS. He apologized to me. He broke up with me when he started feeling sick. It turns out he did that because he hoped to keep me safe. We talked a lot on the phone and even visited each other over the next year. It felt good to reconnect, but Wayne was very sick. He was a devout Mormon, and being so devout, he wanted to tell his bishop that he was gay and that he had AIDS, and that was his truth. I warned him not to do it, and his mother told him not to do it, but he was determined, and so he did. I talked to him right after that meeting. His voice was small and slow and quiet. I could feel his heartbreak and pain. "They're going to excommunicate me," he whispered. The cruelty they inflicted on this sick, vulnerable, and frightened young man is still unimaginable to me. He wanted to feel held and loved, but instead he was brutalized. Wayne died soon after that. His family was denied a church funeral. The Mormon church did not want him. But the way I see it, they didn't deserve him. Overall, I know I've had a good life. I'm single now, but in the end of the last century, I was with another partner, and together we raised his biological son, Chad. A lot of really dramatic things happened as a result of my breakup with Chad's father, the most hurtful of which was that I was separated from Chad, my stepson, for 16 years. When his dad died unexpectedly a few years ago, Chad reluctantly stepped back into my life. We got reconnected by telephone. I told him how much I loved and missed him, and he missed me too, and we cried on the phone together. He and his wife and daughter were living in Corpus Christi, and the first chance I got, I drove down there, and our reunion was nothing short of magical. At the end of our first dinner at a Chinese restaurant, as we were walking out the door, Chad asked me something about his 4-year-old daughter that at first I didn't understand. He said it again. "What do you want Eliza to call you?" I was still puzzled, so he explained. "Grandpa is already taken, so you'll have to pick something else for her to call you." Now, when the world goes crazy and slaps a 6 in front of your age, you quickly learn that good news is something reserved for mainly the young. Health issues, friends dying, the world changing and not in a good way, it's seldom good news. But I had just been handed a wonderful gift that I never expected and didn't see coming. In that moment, I became a grandfather. Papa is what she calls me, and I want the world she inherits to be better than mine. So when I say I've had a good life, I'm not exaggerating, and I know that I am both lucky and privileged. I survived healthy as a gay man, the ravages of the AIDS epidemic. I'm kind of a unicorn that way. I had good parents who modeled unconditional love and who supported me when life got me down. And I have a granddaughter, actually 3 of them now, which brings joy to my life every day. And I know I'm an outlier. There are lots of people, probably much nicer and better people than me, whose lives are turned upside down by the world, by religion, by their families, by ICE, by MAGA, by racists, by billionaires. And they feel hopeless. I owe them something. We all owe them something. People who look like me have made the world frightening for vulnerable people, and I bear some responsibility for that and for correcting it. No one deserves a cookie for not being a racist, for not being a bigot, not being MAGA. Being a decent person should really be our baseline. The trick is putting decency into action. I'll leave you with a couple of my favorite quotations, one from the Age of Enlightenment and the other from today. One poses a question and the other offers an answer. Philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau asks, "What wisdom can you find that is greater than kindness?" To which contemporary philosopher Cornel West suggests, "Justice. It's what love looks like in public." Thank you for listening to me.